move on to Washington.
Yeah.
Washington is my favorite team in the Pac-12.
Okay.
Not to win this, like particularly this year.
Just your personal favorite.
It's my personal favorite in the Pac-12. I love their stadium. I think it's one of the coolest stadiums. It's built right on Puget Sound, and they sailgate, and I think that's cool. It's a stadium that it's probably number one on my stadiums to go to a game at. Just think it's beautiful.
Fair enough.
And I feel optimistic about them this year. They have they're in a big metropolitan area, so they can recruit that. And then they can also pull kids from around the country because the Pacific Northwest is now cool. And they had a great 2020 season. They should have been in the Pac-12 championship, but because of COVID. That was not available to happen. Yeah, I mean, I think
Jimmy Lake was a great hire. I mean, it was kind of an obvious hire because it was the coordinator under Chris Peterson. But I think he stepped in and he's kind of just kept that championship mentality in the program, kept that defensive mentality in the program.
Yeah, I mean, when you
a great defense.
Yeah, and when you have a winning program, why change it? Why change it by bringing in somebody new?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just promote somebody that's used to it, knows what to do, and makes it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. Great hire. We forgot to say what they were ranked nationally in recruiting, which they're at 36 this year, which is actually down. Previously in 2020, they were at 17, and next year they're at 41. And I see that also, like, I see them moving down in the recruiting to like the 20s or maybe the 30s.
They do have a big pickup this year in recruiting. They got a 5-star quarterback, local guy, Sam Heward.
That's going to be exciting. Yeah, so they had 1 5-star, 3 4-stars, and 11 3-stars.
Solid class.
15 overall commits. It's actually not a huge class, but solid.
I've noticed that I think it's because of that NCAA rule that you're allowed to have another year of eligibility because of COVID. So I noticed in the Pac-12 especially, a lot of them have smaller classes, and they've dropped in the rankings pretty significantly. So I don't think it's too much to look into in terms of the ranking. Classes on an average ranking are still really good. So,
So for their schedule, they start out hosting Montana, who I, in a previous episode, confused with Wyoming.
They're the same place.
They're essentially the same. But Wyoming has a much cooler stadium than Montana.
They just are cooler in general.
Much cooler. A better color scheme, everything. Anyways.
Just going to shit on Montana for a second.
Then Washington heads out to Pure, Michigan.
Big game. Big old game.
Big game. That's going to be a fun game, I think. Should be a good game.
That's going to be like a 10-3 final.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a low scoring, knock them around football game.
Yeah.
And I would personally, I have plans that weekend, but personally, I would love to go to that game. That'd be a game I'd love to go see.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, Jimmy Lake is not on the hot seat at all, whereas I think Jim Harbaugh has a little bit warmer of a seat. So I think that is a must-win for Michigan.
I think they should win that game.
I think they should. But Washington could surprise me.
Yeah. Washington's going in their house money. Like, all the pressure's on Michigan. Like, Washington loses, nobody cares. Like,
exactly.
They'll just go back.
Michigan loses, and they're in trouble.
Yeah. And Washington's right back on the map. They probably jump up into the top 20, top 15 in the rankings.
Easy. Easy. Yeah, so then they host Arkansas State and the Fighting Butch Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
And then they host Cal. Then they go to Oregon State. And then they're off and get UCLA at home, which I think is a benefit to them. But UCLA actually plays in Husky Stadium really well all the time for some reason. Then they're at Arizona, and that's an evening game, so it'll be very cold. So I think it actually suits Washington's strengths better. At Stanford, when they host Oregon, and they host Arizona State, at Colorado, and they host Washington State. So they get the rivalry game at home. They get some of the tougher games at home. It sets up to be a pretty good schedule for Washington.
Yeah, I agree.
Over under, I'm looking, they can win
8.5,
3,
9.5,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I could see him winning 10 games.
Yeah, I could see him winning 10 games. And really, like, there's a couple, like, if things go their way, they play really well and they're better than we expect. 11.
I think the only games they won't be favored in are at Michigan, home to Oregon, and that might be it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they'll be favored in all but those games. I think, yeah, they should be favored in all of those games. I really see that
optimism around Washington.
Yep. I'm more optimistic about now looking at the schedule. I'm more optimistic than I was, and that's saying something.
Look out for Washington.